Industries, both officially in the playoffs. The rest of us, 2 weeks ago, fighting for those final 4 spots. Now, if the playoffs were today, it would be Matt, Deesum, Swart, and Andy, who is clinging to the 6th and final playoff spot, would be in. The other 4 teams, myself included, I guess, will be fighting for bragging rights. This week, some really interesting things happening on the waiver wire. A couple of fantasy football icons dropped. One, Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson is no longer on a fantasy football team. Maybe he gets picked up. Maybe people wait to see next year. And the other one that caused a little bit more of a hullabaloo was the Brandon Marshall dropping. Now, Brandon Marshall, not a great year. The New York Jets, not a great year. Brandon Marshall was the 46th ranked wide receiver in our league, the 154th overall player. So let's not pretend that a elite quarterback was dropped here. But Brandon Marshall and Adrian Peterson are without teams for the first time in 8 to 10 years. I mean, for the first time in their careers, let's be honest. Some other interesting drops and ads on the waiver wire. Tim Hightower finds himself back on a fantasy football roster. Like, well, what's the big deal? Wasn't he already on one? He was. But on Wednesday, he was dropped. And then on Friday, he was added. The significance of this, it was all done by the same team, Adam Swart, who is just throwing stuff at the wall. Now, albeit he is on a roll as of late, but man, oh man, $1 for Tim Hightower. Was it a timeout? Hey, Tim Hightower, you go sit over there for a couple days, and you think about what you did. And then maybe, just maybe, we'll bring you back. We'll just keep adding money to the pot. Although you're not the worst defender, Mr. Swart. We'll get to that in a little bit. Lastly, before we get into the games, the all-time worst record for a season is safe for yet another year. Jeff Marksher's 2-10-1 will not be touched, as John and I both added victory number 3. Woo! And with that, let's get to the games. Manamana, who is on a two-game skid, comes in at 7-3, taking on the Architect at 7-3. First place teams from each respective division. Wasn't quite a first place result for one of them. 115.5 for Marksher, 768 for the Architect. Marksher, like I said, pulls out of the 2 games when Brady pulls out of his little 1-game 6-point week that he had. No, David Johnson, 25.5 point, continues to rumble and carry Marksher's team and also make me look like a giant idiot. Marksher's in the playoffs as of right now, but not clinching the division as of yet. If you were to lose the next 2 and Swart were to win the next 2, which he's not going to because he's playing me. But anyway, if you were, Marksher got swept by Swart. Swart still could potentially win this division. If you're Matt, Ezekiel Elliott had 10 points, second lowest point total of the year. 16 points from a combined 3 wide receivers. Kyle Rudolph had 1 point. Houston's defense had 2. You may have showed up on the message board this week, dude, but you didn't show up on the field. You fall to 7-4. Next, a team who desperately needs to win, a Bazinga coming in at 5-5, taking on Kramerica at 7-3, 97 for Kramerica, 65 for Bazinga. Bazinga falls, and now desperately clinging to the 6th and final spot. If you're Kramerica, the Pittsburgh defense pick up 24 points, huge week by them, definitely led the way. No one was below 4 points. With McCoy's injury, you have to kind of wonder, is Duke Johnson finally going to have his day? Another thing brought up, a loyal and longtime fan of the show, Gary from Gary, Indiana, pointed this little nugget out. Sid might actually, if he wins the whole thing this year, might be the only owner in league history to still owe money after winning the FTFL championship. We'll just have to wait and see where that goes. If you're Bazinga, you needed this win bad. Big Ben, 4 points. Now, Derek Carr on the bench had more, wouldn't have helped to get the win. Le'Veon Bell, 22, definitely playing well. The big news, though, for Bazinga this week is A.J. Green, done for what appears to be the season. Rawls is coming back. Not sure if that's going to help, although Rawls actually came back. This is a team who is in a bad spot with 2 weeks left. Next up, Adam Swart, who is absolutely on fire. I'm hung this week up against titties and balls. Ryan Deesum's titties and balls, might I say. Deesum, 80. Adam Swart, 112. If you're Swart, the lowest position player with 7 points. That was Larry Fitzgerald. Rob Kelly scored 26 points off the scrap heap. Dead stock went up with 19. 3 wins in a row, and he now is in the driver's seat. Second place and still a shot at the North Division. If you're decent, the Raider Roundhouse fell short this week, only 24 points between Latavius, Amari, and Michael Crabtree. Jeremy Hill only had 5, but that point total could be climbing upwards now. The Gio Bernard is out for the rest of the year. Not a bad week, but not good enough. He falls to 7-4. This week, my one good minute, we're going to go ahead and make it a thankful good minute. I have come up with what is my top 10 reasons why I am thankful. The top 10 things about the FTFL that I am thankful for, and here we go. Number 10, it's our rule book. It is the absolute best rule book in the land. It is just locked up, tight as can be, no issues whatsoever. Number 10, our rule book. Number 9, drafting players for owners who don't show up at the draft. A few players that come to mind: Ben Gay, Tim McGraw, and then there was that one year someone drafted Donovan McNabb for Andy. I think he still might be a little perturbed about that. Number 8, any trade offer from Salty. Makes me laugh every single time. Number 7, Bop. Man, Bop, you gave us all sorts of reasons to better select players in the future who could join our league, because your one season, it was short, but let me tell you what, memorable for how terrible it was, although you were in the game that led to another one on our list here coming up. Number 6, Fireball Cannonball. Number 5, the 2003 draft. In attendance for that draft were myself, Sid, and Deesum sitting on our table. On the phone was Andy, who was also drafting for the aforementioned Bop. Instant Messenger, Linkowitz, Markshire, and I think Joe. 3 people attended that draft. Number 4, the Deesum Award. You know what? In this league, we don't just celebrate champions, we also celebrate losers. And it was way back when, in 2003, against Bob, when all he had to do was submit a lineup. And he didn't. Deesum lost out in the playoffs, and thus an award was created. Number 4 was the Deesum. Number 3, the Reggie Bush shirt. At the 2006 draft, number 1 overall pick by Sid Hagen was Reggie Bush, and he commemorated the moment with an amazing, albeit very, very homemade, Reggie Bush jersey, letting us all know who his number 1 pick would be. Number 2 on my 10 most thankful things about the FTFL, Rashad Jennings. One of my all-time favorite draft moments. And number 1, of course, was the time that in 2003, I won the FTFL title. Aha! Let's get back to the last couple games and wrap this week up. Linkowitz coming in at 2-8 versus Radioactive Monkeys, who again now were up, they were down, they were up, and now they're down 3 in a row. Linkowitz 99, Radioactive Monkeys 70. If you're Linkowitz, welcome back. The Vikings defense was 20 points this week. Jamison Crowder picked up off the scrap heap at a 17.5. Survived having 3 players under 5 points, but that was because Saltmarsh didn't offer much as far as resistance. Kirk Cousins, 32 points on the bench. You can't win if those players are on the bench. This is his 3rd loss in a row. The playoffs at this point are on the jeopardy. He is on the outside looking in. Cam Newton, 12 points. DeAndre Hopkins, 4.5. Those 2 players have cost Saltmarsh this season and may cost him his chance at the playoffs. They have struggled all year long. Lastly, the Hulkamaniacs, also 2-8, taking on the Pack Attack at 3-7. Brother-in-law versus brother-in-law. And again, like I said last week, one of the few people I have a winning record against is Eric, and that winning tradition continues. 76 for me, 35.5 for the Pack Attack. Aaron Rodgers again leads the way for this team, 26 points. James White, 13. Those are the only 2 in double digits. It didn't matter. Eric rolled over, and thankfully, I avoid still a shot at the league's worst record of all time. If you're Eric, anyone besides Lamar Miller on your team didn't do anything for you. You fall to last place, and almost now, not quite officially, but soon, maybe, on the clock for the first overall pick next year. This week, stud of the week, Rob Kelly, proving my point. 26 points. Fantasy football ain't about skill, folks. It's all about luck. Adam Swart throwing money at the wall, not quite like Hagen, but you found a little diamond in and amongst the pile of turds. Way to go. The dud of the week, every single player on Eric's team not named Lamar Miller. Everyone else on that team was under 5.5, and 5 of them scored 2 points or less. Awful week for him. The Deesum Award, a Deesum update, I should say, Swart, the Tim Hightower incident, and again, I will nominate myself once more, David Johnson. That trade looks worse and worse with each passing week. Next week, week 12, 2 weeks to go. Cray Merrick at 8-3 takes on the Architect, 7-4, South Division lead on the line. I'm hung. 6-5 versus the Hulkamaniacs, 3-8, as Swart continues to try solidify his playoff spot. Manamana 8-3 versus the Radioactive. We need to win Monkeys at 5-6. Linkowitz 3-8 taking on Bazinga, who also needs to win at 5-6, and Ryan Diesel Cities and Balls at 7-4 taking on the Pack Attack at 3-8. This has been the FTFL Weekly Update. We thank you for tuning in again this week. I hope each and every one of you have an amazing Thanksgiving, and I'll see you next time.